presentation there. And I think I need to, at this juncture, bring the third speaker, that is Professor Femi Olufunmilade, joining us from Benin, Edo State. Professor, you have the floor now. Professor, well, thank you once more and welcome to the conversation this evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maazi. I want to say that COVID-19, that is where I want to start, is like Dr. Katch Ononuju said, there is no better time to be a Nigerian. Yeah, indeed, there is no better time because COVID-19 was the underbelly of our underdevelopment as a country. Most of the problems we are having today, they are manifestations of the crisis of underdevelopment. That is why our well-being has been zigzag. Sometime we had oil boom, and it appears that we were on top of gold. Our naira was strong. We were internationally mobile. Foreign investors were trooping into Nigeria. Then when the oil boom became doomed, prices went down, everything turned around negatively. Balance of payment problems set in. We could no longer pay for our basic imports. Our industries were not able to import required raw materials because we were already industrializing in the 70s when you saw a number of assembly plants, a number of cocoa processing industries, etc., springing up. So, but because ours has been a monocultural economy that is dependent on oil, and we've never taken the advantage of the oil income to develop other sectors like agriculture, manufacturing. Today we are talking of ICT as a major economic sector. We find ourselves in a situation where anytime the oil prices go down owing to external factors, then we are in trouble. So now that we have COVID-19 bringing a slump to economies worldwide, our underbelly of our underdevelopment again has been exposed. We realize that a lot of what we need, we are not getting the required foreign exchange to import them. I say this is the good time to be a Nigerian because it offers an opportunity for us to do a rethink and to grapple with our problem at the base. We must transit this state of import dependency to a state of basic self-sufficiency in terms of those basic necessities that we need to survive as a people. Food is one of them, and that's very elementary. Clothing, shelter, building materials. We thank God for the likes of Dangote. We are no longer a net importer of cement. But what about the other things? Roofing sheets and other accessories. Are we self-sufficient? The answer is no. So the borrowing aspect, I will want to say, will not be bad altogether if we are going to get value for the money being borrowed. And if the money being borrowed are going to be deployed where our economy will be assisted to come out of the quagmire of underdevelopment. I would like to see money going into the production of our basic needs. I look at the statistics of two countries, Vietnam and which other country, Bangladesh. The money they generate from the export of clothing materials. That of Bangladesh for 2018 was about $33 billion. And that of Vietnam was also in the neighborhood. That same year, our total earnings from oil was about $32 billion. In other words, Vietnam and Bangladesh, these are two backwater countries that are just grappling to crawl out of the nadir of poverty. The money they make from one item alone that require value added, that requires self-effort, that is not like oil that we just dig from beneath the soil and export, is more than what we made from oil. That is just one item. I'm not talking about other things that they have produced. And we're a country of 200 million people. So COVID-19 is telling us that we are going to do the issue of economic self-sufficiency as a country has to do with being able to produce what human beings need. There is no magic to it. China became, I did my PhD thesis on China. China became rich today because it developed its capacity to produce basic human needs. What China gets annually from the export of toys, teddy bears, our oil does not get 1/4 of it. From the export of toys. Do you require advanced technology to produce toys? It's just to make up your mind that this is the way we want to go. This thing will bring money. Let us assist those who have the capacity to do it and let them do it. But our problem has been the failure of leadership. The leadership is not strategic. Our leadership is not anchored on long-term planning. Being able to have a holistic view of various economic indices and being able to set create a roadmap that in a year, this is what we want to be able to produce. In 2 years, in 3 years, we have policy inconsistencies. Most of those that are in the corridors of power over the decades are very unpatriotic set of people. Imagine during the tenure of President Shagari, they set up a presidential task force on the importation of rice, whereas this country has the required climatic conditions, the varieties of it, whether lowland rice, whether upland rice, whether swampy rice, we should be exporting rice. But rather, a whole presidential task force was set up and headed by Alhaji Umaru Dikko, then Minister of Transport, to import rice. I knew someone then who was the director, National Series Research Institute, Lake Christopher Obachola. He was summoned to Ministry of Federal Ministry of Science and Technology for coming out at that time to say that his institute has a plan to make Nigeria self-sufficient in rice production. They summoned him. He told me it's late now. He died in 1995, but he told me because whenever he saw me being so passionate about how things should be done in the country, he told me one day, young man, take it easy. And he now gave me that example of what happened to him. He said I was dressed down by the you address a president, the right import rice. When the president just set up a presidential task force on the importation of this same commodity, I just give that as an example. There are a litany of other examples. So we need a leadership that will help us. China did not attain what they attain today by carefree, anything goes kind of leadership. They assembled, there's what we call scientific planning. You will be able to say, okay, gold. We also have gold. South Africa's economy was transformed on mining industry, basically gold. We have gold in Osun State, in Ilesha. We have it in Zamfara. Rather than it benefiting people, it was causing crisis there. So that leads me to another critical issue. It is clear that the federal government of Nigeria has taken upon itself more than what it can handle. There is need for this federal government to unbundle its responsibilities to the various states. We have 36 states. Any state that cannot fend for itself and its people, then let them face the music. That was what it used to be the spirit in the First Republic that we always look back to with some longing in us that, oh, when Awolowo was premier in the Western region, he was able to do this. There was, at that time, they were remitting money to run the federal government, 20% of their revenue. It's not the other way around. The federalism, the fiscal federalism we have now is anti-developmental. States are made to look up to Abuja, to go and collect oil money. The incentive to look inward is not there. So I would want to suggest that the federal government under the APC should take a second look at the issue of restructuring in its manifesto. Why can't the governor of Zamfara be able to allocate mines to those who want to exploit gold in his state? Why must somebody travel all the way from Zamfara State to go to Federal Ministry of Mines in Abuja and then be going through all kinds of bureaucracy being tossed up and down? Why can't Osun State governor also have the power to do the same thing? Then you look at electricity. You can't have development without electricity. See where we are with so much money down the drain. What is the big deal about generating electricity? Why are we fixated to the concept of national grid? Can't we have state grid? A state should be able to generate, transmit, and distribute its own electricity. It's not rocket science. Why can't states have internet railway system? We travel abroad. I was in Houston some time ago. I saw there are multiple transportation options for you. There were, intra-city railway service. Why can't states have the same thing? So the powers at the level of the federal government should be unbundled. And an aspect of that is very critical right now because of the problem of insecurity we are facing is the issue of state police. The so-called Nigerian police force is largely maintained by the states. They are the ones buying them vehicles, patrol vehicles. They are the ones buying them raincoat, torchlight, walkie-talkie, and the rest of it. Whereas, when a commissioner of police misbehaves within the state, when criminals are operating and is not doing the needful, the state governor cannot sack him. And yet, he's taking so much from the state governor. That's an anomalous situation that should be discontinued. The fears that state police will be misused, some state governors will use it for political purposes, or that they are going to use it to break up the country, is unfounded. That is a very narrow way of thinking. Look at what the way people, lives are being lost daily in the north of this country. Most of them are farmers. They have never benefited anything from federal government. They can't go to their farms. A governor is now carrying money. I've seen 2 governors in the north saying it openly that they have given huge chunks of money to bandits to beg them to leave their states alone. Yet the bandits are unrelenting. Why can't these governors be given the power like in Zamfara? If the Zamfara state governor have the power to establish state police State police doesn't mean you will have the same type of police. If the major security challenges Zamfara is facing is from bandits in the forest, then Zamfara can invest in creating a forest ranger. That's a type of police. That they will even have stations, different stations, instead of in the city, right inside the forest there. They will have different sectors. Who is combing this sector? Who is combing that sector? They will be proactive and protect that state. How much will you, if you are going to be paying 1,000 youth, train them, equip them, and you are paying them, let's say, 30,000 naira per month, and you have 1,000 of them, in a year, you will be paying them 360 million naira. Is that up to what some state governors loot in the name of security votes? So, the conversation we should be having in this country now is to make it clear that this country belongs to all of us, and we are all stakeholders. We cannot be cringing before those that we elected to serve us and be begging them to do what is necessary. Look, in the Southwest, I was one of those that, you know, added my own influence and my own input into making sure that we resort to, we do something at the, by way of self-help. That was how Amotekun came up. Amotekun wasn't the initiative of our governors. It was a collective, it was a product of a collective will of a people under siege. You could no longer travel from Ibadan to Ife. They will be issuing travel advisory at Obafemi Awolowo University. The road is not safe. This trip we are talking about is not up to 1 hour. Within a country that has a government, you could not travel from Benin, from Okada, about a trip of about 35 minutes to Benin. You will be afraid. There were bandits operating on the road everywhere. So it was within that milieu, we said, let's do something. Let's defy this federal government. Let's defy it. How can you say we should not protect ourselves? The Attorney General said his own bit. The Inspector General came with a red herring. He said he's going to community policing. I analyzed what he called, the way he described his idea of a community police. I shook my head for him. That you are a law officer. You are supposed to be in the business of protecting us, and you are playing politics with security. He said those community policing people, they will be volunteers. They are not going to be paid. He gave a kind of abstractive analysis of what it will look like. Where is he today? He just said that to discourage the formation of Amotekun at the time. But it's just Amotekun is pseudo police. We have an Anambra State Vigilante Service. Let's have state police. There will be a National Police Commission that will set guidelines in terms of training, in terms of modus operandi of recruitment, in terms of the caliber of weaponry, and even acquisition of the weapons. And there will also be sanctions for erring states. If a state governor makes use of it, will be misuse it, it will be criminally liable for it. I work in a university system. We have National Universities Commission that regulates the operations of universities, whether they are federally owned, state-owned, or privately owned. Before private universities came on board, a lot of people were scared. Oh, standard will fall and all that. And I'm telling you today that NUC itself has brought up a number of programs, a number of competition, and they discovered that products of private universities are on top in engineering, in medicine, and so on and so forth. So when we have state police, all this insecurity everywhere, the focus will be on the governors. It will no longer be on Buhari. Everybody is Buhari, 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 Buhari. If something happens in the corner of Anambra, it's Buhari. Something happens in the corner of Plateau, Buhari. By then, everybody will be looking at their state governor. What is our police doing? Will be the next issue. I'm working on the paper on state police because I've talked so much about this thing now that, and the more I'm delving into it, the more I'm saying that ours is the only federation in the whole world that has a centralized police command. Canada has a decentralized police command, it's a federation. United States has a decentralized police command. Even counties. County is not a local government, it's like a ward. Some big wards in the United States, they have what they call county rangers. They have their own police. It's like you say you are in a particular development area in Lagos that is highly congested. That the ward there, not the local government, can have its own police. In December, I was Johns Hopkins University. The state governor of Alabama was just approving state campus police for Johns Hopkins University because there were about 2 incidents of criminality. And these police will carry guns. They will have their patrol vans within the university area. They will have their detention center. But of course, they are subject to state laws within that environment. So, critical to whatever President Buhari wants to do with these loans is the need to secure this country. He cannot wait any further. He has just 3 more years to spend. I have been a part of his presidential campaign council for 3 consecutive times, 2011, 2015, 2019. And I was one of those who wrote that manifesto of the All Progressive Congress. The core element of that manifesto is restructuring. We need to go back to it.
Thank you.
The reason why restructuring is, So finally, what I want to say, let me just, on the issue of debt, I will quickly, there is so much to say, but so little time to say it. On the issue of debt, I want to advise President Buhari seriously that he should focus on projects that he will be able to deliver within the 3 years left of his administration. He should focus on those ones and deliver them, because if he makes the mistake of embarking on long-term projects, he will discover that the moment he steps aside, the next administration will not make it a priority. That is why we have a litany of uncompleted projects in this country. So that is that. And I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much for, hold on. Thank you very much, Professor Femi, for that excellent contribution. Obviously, you outlined a lot of things, starting from leadership failure, lack of scientific planning, unbundling the exclusive list, APC, the failure of APC to stick to their manifesto, which you said at the beginning, and I started laughing. You said you're part of those that actually drafted the restructuring document that has been thrown in the dustbin. How do you feel as a professor who contributed his time, energy, and the intellectual input to draft something that was called a progressive manifesto, and suddenly the same government that you helped to come into power and comes in and takes those informations and the intellectual inputs that you have and just throw them away? How does it feel? I mean, that's just a question before I get to the next stage. How do you feel today sitting down here and you've seen that all the effort you've made in good faith has been thrown away?
Well, I want to say that maybe it has not been thrown away. We still have 3 more years.
But if it hasn't been done in 5 years, sorry, but what to say, it's not up to 3 years. It's about 2.5 years.
I want to be positive. You see, when it is time for something to be done,
yes,
you will be getting the kick from different angles. Before, the issue has been that the northern elites are afraid that I'm using state, restructuring is an omnibus concept that entails different things. It has its economic dimension, administrative element, it has its even security element. Let me just zero in on this issue of police, state police. Before, we used to think, the narrative is that even recently, somebody like the former governor of Kaduna State, an elder statesman, I've forgotten his name, is a socialist. He was a governor in the Second Republic.
Is that
I can't
Babara Musa? Is it?
Balarabe Musa, Alhaji
Yeah,
Balarabe Musa.
yeah.
He said that Southerners wanted state police because they are plotting to break it. I found it very, very unfortunate. But you see, there is no part of Nigeria that needs state police more than the northern states today. And they are already embarking on it as a form of self-help too. What do you call civilian JTF in Borno? Was it not because whenever the military run to another trouble zone, fighting Boko Haram, before they return, the Boko Haram people are overrunning villages, overrunning towns again? That was why the youths in those areas gathered themselves together and said, let us form a kind of self-defense force for our communities. They didn't start writing President Buhari or taking permission from the Inspector General of Police. When the military saw what they were doing, they embraced it. They even armed them, gave them guns. Yes. Okay. So when the time for an idea has matured, if you do not embrace it and accept it, then you are going to throw away the baby with the bath water. Okay, there will be more of self-help. A lot of people will begin to defy your authority and begin to do things their own way. So I am believing and I'm hoping that reason will prevail within these remaining 3 years of President Muhammadu Buhari. He himself and those around him will see the need to begin to embrace this well thought out manifesto of the APC that we believe is transformative.
Thank you.
So it's not too late. 3 years is a lot.
Well, thank you very much, Professor. There is an adage in Igbo that says, meaning, I don't know how to translate.
Okay, what I just want to add to this is that there is a layer of government that most of us ignore. Where, of course, there is so much concentration of power at the center, but a lot of resources are also flowing into the states. At least they go on the monthly jamboree of collecting their federal allocation. So most of us don't pay attention to the states. We need to start holding at the regional level, holding our state governments to account. There's so much the governors of Ogun, Ondo, Oyo, Lagos, Ekiti, and the Osun states can do for the Southwest without looking up to the federal government. There is so much they can do if they look inwards and they roll up their sleeves to work. Even as bad as the 1999 Constitution is, a lot is still in the hands of the state governors. Education, health, infrastructure. If they apply what they have and they look inward, agriculture has great potentials. What are they doing with those things? So our state governors, it is high time we start holding them to, accountable for a lot of things. Like the Amotekun thing, was it not the governors that were compelled to put it together in the Southwest? There is still much more they can do. Interstate roads, must they wait for the federal government to do that? Agriculture, must they wait for federal government? When you're traveling from one state to another, you see so much arable land and you see so much youth in the cities without jobs. Why can't they establish farm settlements? Why can't they establish industrial parks? Why can't they create schemes for the people to know how to harness power from the little streams around them? There is what we call small hydro. I went to train with the British Hydro Power Association at Cragside in near Newcastle upon Tyne, sometime back in 2009. And I was amazed that the little rivers we see, we can generate electricity from them. Why can't the states look into such things? Look into solar power generation. When Awolowo was premier of the old Western region, we were, now Dr. Ononuju is talking about Fulani colonization. That time we were still under British colonization. Everything that we are saying Awolowo did, 1951 to 59, Nigeria had not obtained independence. And he ruled up to as far as Delta. And you will see his imprimatur deity today, positively. So, and what I look at his budget is not up to that, by today's conversion, it's not up to that of the annual budget of Delta states. And he was able to do so much. So these state governors have a lot of loose funds in their hands. So we need to, begin to hold them accountable. We look at countries like the United States that are developed today. Do you know that until 1918, women were not even allowed to vote in the United States? Do you know that until the civil rights movement, blacks were not allowed to vote? How did they get all these rights? It was through street protests. We need to reinvent the culture of protest. We've heard about women riot. We've heard about the railway worker strike led by Pai Modu. That was how we were able to get independence and get a number of welfare benefits even under colonialism. So right now, are we doing that? We need to be able to benchmark our governors and say, this is what we expect of you. They should give us account. This money, you don't just tell us this is your budget. How did you spend it? So if we want transformation, we want restructuring, more money, more responsibility to the states, we should start holding them to ransom now. And some of us that are elites, we should begin to think of regional development agenda and regional lobby group, regional protest group, so that our governors can sit up and charlatans will no longer be aspiring to rule us at the state level, because then they will realize that there is a lot of job to do. So that is one area we have been ignoring, because we are all fixated to Abuja and looking at one man who has amassed so much power by virtue of the 1999 Constitution. But our governors too have a lot to do. So that is one area that I want us to look at.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Femi, for that clarification. Obviously, when we talk about Nigeria being at the breaking point, it also implies the states. Now, there was I think that was yesterday, the budget IT, or budget it as it's called, shared a data that clearly showed what the 6 states of the Niger Delta have earned in the last year. So humongous, then you kind of start asking yourself, there is no development happening within the region that one can say, yes, there is judicious management of these resources that have been going in here. That applies to every other region as well. So while we talk about the federal government, it's clearly good that you pointed that out. We must also not forget about the state. We must also not even forget about the lowest tier of government. We must bear in mind, I think the local government gets about, is it 22% of the whatever is being shared every month. So they get substantial amount of money. That if this were genuinely, like you rightly pointed out, during the time of Awolowo, during the time of Desa Mbakwe, during the time of Ahmadu Bello, if these things were properly, not today that it appears everybody just go into governance just to, move on convoys and run people off the street and go with so much police escort and just engage in needless things that are avoidable.
All for the sake of our dear country called Nigeria. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
but then one thing that is very, very key, I have heard some of the people asking about why are the National Assembly not doing what they're supposed to do? And this is absolutely correct, because the National Assembly are there to monitor, do the right thing as a representative of the Nigerian people. They have the highest power, the highest authority, more than even the president and the governor, especially at the state level. Now, we have to go back into one key thing that I have been talking about personally from my own corner and other people. The issue of law and order, the issue of judiciary power and authority. Without us actually keying and following rules, the Constitution, either backward or forward, either negative Constitution or positive Constitution, without us actually keying and following this Constitution and the law of that country, it will be very hard for us to achieve what we're looking for. So for me, really, ladies and gentlemen, is first thing and first is let's make sure that the people out there are able to follow the due process and the law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Then we can begin knowing that people are afraid to do something because they know the law will deal with it. For now, nobody can tell you what is going to happen tomorrow morning. So our agitation will continue to grow, but I hope that not just from here that we're talking, that we'll be able to come together. And the truth of the matter is we can make a lot of noise. It will not reach anywhere because the people that control the system are the people in the State House of Assembly and the National Assembly. And the truth of what we're seeing, especially given a typical example in Edo State, until when we follow the internal process, then we'll have a long way to go, but it's absolutely achievable. What we aim for as Nigerians, we can achieve within a month and within a year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alistair, for that wonderful submission. Then on this note, I'll be bringing Professor Femi here. Professor, I hope you jotted some of these questions. Majority of these questions came back to you and Katch Ononuju. So I will give you the floor first, then afterwards, Katch will do. If you can just summarize that questions and answer them in 3 minutes, if that will be fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I say good evening to my friend, Alistair. It's refreshing to see that he's part of this program. In 2009, when I was in Britain, I think he played me a very great host, and I was able to do some of the things I went to do in Newcastle regarding small hydropower, etc. Now, what I want to say in respect of the question, someone asked, how do we get the northern elites to accept restructuring? Well, I believe it's not all the northern elites that are opposed to restructuring. There are a few here and there that understood what it is all about. You know, the general fear is that when you say restructuring, they feel you want to dislodge the North from power, you know, or to remove some of the privileges that they enjoy by virtue of the way the Constitution is structured, in terms of the number of seats they have in the national parliament, the Senate, the House of Reps, that gives them numerical advantage when voting is being done. And in terms of the revenue allocation formula, a situation where a state like Kano has 44 local governments and they collect federal allocation, and the Lagos State that generates 56% of VAT has only 20 that is recognized within the Constitution, though they have some that they resorted to self-help to create. Now, I want to tell you that we need to unbundle what restructuring is. If we need state police, we have Amotekun now. We should ensure that Amotekun functions very well. Anambra has Anambra State Vigilante Service. You should try your best to make sure it functions very well. After all, when Sharia was being declared in the North, the South was not consulted, and it was clearly in violation of the existing constitution. But they went ahead with it, and even till now, you have what they call ISBA. It's a religious police. So we have reached a point where we need to, those of us who share the same conviction, should push our state governments in the Southeast, in the Southwest, and you know, progressive states in the North. Quite a number of states in the North are progressive. Those of us who want change are actually more than those who do not want it. But the problem we have is that we are divided. We need to come together and insist on what we want. And if they refuse, we insist we're going to have it. and we're going to have it. After all, independence did not come to us on a platter of gold. We've heard of all those protests by Abba women about the railway, worker strike, etc. The Zikist movement, a lot of them were jailed. So even though it wasn't bloody, our independence wasn't as bloody as those of Kenya, where they had to use Mau Mau, Mau Mau guerrilla group, and it wasn't as bloody as that of Zimbabwe or South Africa, but it was not without a price. We need to explore legal means, legal angles. Some people have proposed that we should look at even the proclamation of amalgamation of 1914, or to look at the 1963 constitution that the military intervention of 1966 truncated. Can we come together and take some legal action to ensure that the status quo ante pre the coup is restored? There are peaceful avenues that we can exploit, if only we are willing to come together and speak with one voice. And I want to appeal to Nigerians that the state in which the country is in today goes beyond partisan politics. We must look beyond our political parties now, look beyond our ethnic group and our geopolitical politics, and come together to salvage a common destiny, So after all, when we agitated for independence, the bulk of the conservative North were not part of it. The Sardauna was not an agitator for independence. He actually pleaded that they should give them time. And Nauru moved that we should get independence latest by 1956. We will have obtained it, that was in 1953 March. We will have obtained independence a year earlier than Ghana, which got us in 1957. But because the North said they were not ready in terms of personnel to man their bureaucracy and all that, Awolowo, Zik, and the rest subpedal because they saw promise in a united Nigeria, and we cannot fault their reasoning. I still see promise in a united Nigeria, but on equitable terms, not in a situation where one section will be holding down the other. So we need to come, those of us who share the same thing, the same thinking, we need to come together. Because those who are against us, who are against progress, they are in the minority. They are not so many. That is the irony of it. But they are highly organized and strategic. And they thrive in dividing us, divide and rule. That is the undoing of those of us that know how to speak big grammar in the South, in the Middle Belt, and the rest of it. So, if the North, in quote, the conservative elites do not want restructuring, we force it on them. That is the strategy. And we must not joke with 2023. We must dictate our terms. Then, secondly, somebody asked, those who are handicapped, they protested and they were arrested and all that. You can't make omelette without breaking a neck. When we were fighting for June 12th, people like us were just lucky that we were not killed. Some were killed. Some had their houses burned. Some had to run into exile, and so on and so forth. So I will just say sorry to those handicapped people. My heart bleeds that handicapped people were actually being arrested by our police. Our police, you fear God. But there is no other method. Voltaire, the philosopher, he said the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. If you are not ready to stand up for your rights, as Bob Marley says, there are certain things that will not be considered to you, even though it's your right. So if our state governors are messing up, when we start assembling in front of the State House, and we say we are not going to live here until you provide us good road in this area, our cars are being destroyed, then he will know he has a job to do. So there is no advanced democracy, even as beautiful as Britain, as US is, as Germany, you still see the way, how sensitive they are about the issue of their rights and the obligations of government to the citizenry. because they pay taxes. They pay taxes. We should be able to have taxpayers movement, because without tax, government cannot function. We need to see how to organize ourselves. Governance is too important to be left alone to the politicians. Western democracy thrives on the high level of consciousness of those being governed. It is not yielding dividends just by virtue of the grace of those elected into office. They continually keep their leaders on their toes. There is no other method. We need to start mobilizing. In fact, when you are hungry, that's the more reason that you have not much to lose anymore. So those of us who are public spirited should be the ones to mobilize, organize our people into protest groups. We do a lot of that in the Southwest. You know that over the years, if there is anti-SAP riot, protest over fuel, it's usually within Lagos, Ibadan has it. We need to take it to the Southeast. We need to take it to the South-South. We need to take it to the Middle Belt. We need to take it to the far North. Let it not be that it's only religious crisis issues that brings the youths of the far North to the streets, protesting this. Somebody has done that as utter blasphemy and other. Let them be able to come out and say, we need jobs. Let them come to the street in Sokoto, in Kano, and demand that they need jobs. We want our schools to be equipped. We need, that requires organization. We need civic organizations to organize people to protest progressively. Look at Hong Kong. China is trying to impose draconian laws from the mainland on them. They have been resisting now for months because they know the value of freedom and they are not ready to consider niche of it. Some of them have been injured, a lot of them have lost their jobs, but they are continuing. So that is that. And then somebody said, how do we get the government to implement some of these things? Well, what I do is that from time to time, I send memos to those I have access to in government, up to the villa. Sometimes what you send elicits some positive response, but sometimes you need to push it. So we will continue to do our best, but like I've said, making government work is a collective endeavor. So I think I would like to stop here and let others, if I have not touched on the comments of other people, pardon me, because we have a limited time and I don't want to dominate the scene.
Thank you very much, Professor Olufunmilade.